All right. Okay, today I'm here with my friend Jake Jones, who is an entrepreneur of some sort. He's tried to explain it to me a few times, but hopefully today we can get to the bottom of exactly what it is that you do. But Jake and his wife and two kids reside, at least for now, in Park Rapids, where they've been for the last, 2 or 3 years, I'd say?
No, actually about 6 years.
About 6 years in this area, okay. Yeah. But Jake, you're originally from the UK.
Yes, sir.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Birmingham. It is a city about 2 or 3 hours north of London. That would be how I typically explain it when most Americans ask, because Birmingham isn't typically on the map, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I grew up in probably not the best part of Birmingham. We lived on a council. It wasn't like an estate, but it was like it's where they house the people that have drug problems.
Oh.
So that's the environment I grew up in.
Okay.
And we were on that street, not the best memories, and so I'm really glad to be residing in Park Rapids for now.
So you grew up at least partially there, and then you had some connection to Ireland too.
Yeah, so my grandma, or she's watching this, I should call her Gran, because she would kill me if she heard me calling her grandma. She was born in Ireland. She came to England at a young age for opportunities. And we always visited back to Ireland like once per year or sometimes twice a year, especially. That would be like the highlight of my summer holiday from school. And we loved it so much that when I was 16 and I got my first online job, we basically were able to have the resources to pack up my mom, my sister, and my gran. And we went back to Ireland. We escaped the drug street in Birmingham, UK.
Right.
And yeah, we went to greener pastures really for my sister. She now has a really nice spot in Ireland, and she loves hockey. She loves to sweat it out at school, and really she has more opportunity. And that was the main thing for me when moving, is to identify a problem and provide a solution.
But you still carry with you the Brummie accent.
What do you mean? Actually, no, I don't. I dropped that before I even came to the US, because I was working a lot online when I was 15 and 16.
Yeah.
And they couldn't understand a word I was saying. So I became a very neutral British for the longest time. And obviously the longer I'm in the US, the more I'm becoming, well, people think I sound Australian, but you'll have to let me know in the comments what you think.
Really?
I don't know what I sound like. The British family think I sound American, and the Americans think I sound British. So you figure that one out.
Yeah, okay. So you got over to Ireland when you were 16.
Yes,
and now when I think back to when I was 16, I think about this is a completely different era. But when you were 16, it wasn't actually that long ago.
Well,
well, relatively speaking. So how did you end up moving to the United States, and what was your path from Ireland to Park Rapids?
Good question. So from ages 16 through 18, I was pretty much sitting in my bedroom 20 hours a day figuring out how to make money online. Never really took school seriously. I don't think I even went back to pick my grades up, and I had nothing to fall back on. And it hit me when I was 16, 17, 18 that it's really sink or swim for me at this present time. And so I was building connections with, media-related companies in Canada and in the US, and eventually I got hired from a Canadian company. And the Canadian company was trying to cover all of North America, which included the United States. And there was a gaming convention that I was meant to attend in the US, and the convention fell through, but I was able to meet my now wife, and we were friends and we knew each other online, but we then transcended into being engaged and then eventually married, and now we have 2 kids. And that all happened from age 18. I'm 28 now. I was 18 when I first came to the US. It's a really long story. We lived in the Philippines for a year. We lived in the UK for the better part of a year before finally coming back to the US when I was about 22. And that would be in about 2016 through 17, somewhere around there. Yeah. And then we decided to make this home. We put down roots. We bought a house, and we've really been here ever since.
So I took from that you actually didn't finish any kind of formal schooling or anything like that when you were in the UK.
I actually don't know. I think I sat through some of the GCSEs, which is our equivalent of your guys' finals.
Yeah.
I believe I missed some of them, and the ones that I went back to see that I finished, or the ones that my mom gave me the envelope for, they were basically D's and F's. So I was basically a straight failure at that point.
But it's never hindered you in any way in terms of your ability to do the business that you do.
I don't think so. I think from an early age, I've always wanted to be a business owner. And when I say owner, I think that's different from an operator. I think when it comes to being a business owner, you need to make sure that things are going to run when you're not present. And for me, in my specific industry, there was no college course or university course that could have helped me build out a business in such a niche part of YouTube that even the top professors have no idea as to how the inner workings go. So I just doubled down on the YouTube and the media side, and it worked out, and hopefully it stays that way. Okay,
so I want to get kind of back to get down to the basics here on some of this stuff, because it's confusing to a lot of people, and like you said, even professors don't even quite understand it. So let's start with this. People, I think, know what a YouTuber is, right? And I'll just throw out a definition. There is like a YouTuber is somebody who makes a lot of YouTube videos and posts them on the website YouTube, and those are available for general consumption.
Sure.
Did you ever start out as a YouTuber or as a content creator, let's just say, and just tell me a little bit about that before we get to the next step?
For sure. So before, so from ages 16 through 18, I was in Ireland in my room trying to figure out how to make a living. And really, what I first started with was making my own YouTube channel. I used to make Minecraft videos and Call of Duty videos where I'd basically give people life advice and they could ask me questions, and I would give them my commentary over a regular Call of Duty gameplay, where I'd get like 40 kills and 2 deaths, and it would be considered good back then.
Yeah.
And then I started a Minecraft Let's Play series where you would basically start from scratch and you'd want to build up to become the elite guy in Minecraft, I guess. So that's where I started. But then transitioning that into my career, basically, company picked me up and they realized I was getting a few thousand views, which isn't great. But then I realized as I was making a few dollars per month on YouTube, the company that signs you was making 2 times more. So therefore, in dire need of a job, I realized there's an opportunity in talent management and managing YouTube creators.
Okay, so before we get to that step, how does a YouTuber make money?
YouTuber primarily makes money through ad revenue, which is ads being displayed on the video. That is statistically about 90% of YouTube at the moment. They also make money from brand deals and sponsored content, where a company would reach out to them directly or to an agency that represents them, and they would say, here's our budget, here's our brief. The creator can accept or deny depending on if that integration will work with the style of their content. They can also have commerce, so whether it's merchandise or keychains or things along the lines that their friends would like to have in their house or on their keys. Those are the main 3, I would say.
Yeah. And just to give people an idea, aspiring YouTubers out there, in order to make, let's just say, I'm just going to throw a number out there. Let's say $100,000 a year. It's a good number. How many views or subscribers or would a YouTuber actually have to have in order to achieve a figure like that?
Well, I think when it comes to views and subscribers alone, typically when people say I make $100K a year from YouTube, they're referring to being paid by AdSense. But today there's an opportunity, like I said, to plug in so many more streams of revenue to the point where if you make good content and there's a audience base for it and they're watching your videos, you don't have to have that many views at all, because a lot of the sponsored content right now is monthly recurring. So they'll sign a 12-month deal with you while you're small, and they will give you $500 a month or whatever for 12 months. And then you can compound that with ad revenue. You can compound that with taking the videos and cutting them into shorts and posting them on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and getting promotion that way and royalties that way too. Generally, if you're thinking about just the ad revenue, you get about, on average, $5 to $8 per 1,000 monetized views. So do the math. I mean, I can't help you with the math because I failed math class. But typically, the 100K a year runners we see pulling in, depending on the style of the content, 200K views a month
Yeah.
to 1 million views a month. That would be a Western audience. They're doing something compelling like gaming or vlogging or, comedy, something that people watch, because the most important component is average viewership retention or duration. How long are the people watching the videos? And that solely determines how much money you'll make.
Okay. And what is AdSense? You referred to it, but maybe not everybody knows what that is, including myself.
Yeah, so Google, I believe they acquired YouTube. So Google already had a payment infrastructure, and they plugged Google AdSense, which was typically used on traditional websites. If you have a website that has high traffic, they'll play ads and you'll get a share of that revenue. I think you get 55%. So they already had that figured out. And when YouTube came into the picture, they didn't want to build a whole new YouTube payment infrastructure. So they basically plugged Google AdSense into YouTube as the paying entity for all of the revenues generated from, YouTube directly.
Okay. So AdSense is a wing of Google.
Yep.
That deals with the ad revenues and the distribution and the shares, between the content creators and Google itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So they provide the platform. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the money then is paid by advertisers to Google.
Yep.
And how do those contracts work?
So YouTube essentially has an inventory of ad space, and ad buyers will bid through Google Ads to essentially say, here's the piece of media that I would like to be displayed on your website, whether it's a pre-roll before a video or somewhere embedded on the YouTube watch page. And essentially the highest bidders get picked and they get the best ROI. Now, naturally, since COVID, there's been a lot more. So we're seeing an increase in CPMs, which is the cost per 1,000 views on average. But that's typically, YouTube would have an ad sales team. They have a large international ad sales team, and they have contracts with really, really, really big companies. And those companies typically come back month after month, year after year. And as people are realizing that, radio and billboards have low ROI, more and more people are naturally coming to YouTube. So it's more of a, we're going to come to you. You don't really have to do so much cold outreach anymore. Right. Because the name YouTube and Google speaks for itself. It's on every phone and tablet that we know of today.
And how does the advertiser know where their product ought to be displayed?
Well, typically it's based on a viewer's search history, actually. So it's a natural process of selection to where here's the ad, here's the video. Even if there's a pre-roll ad for, let's say, a tennis ball, and you're, like the channel that you're watching isn't about tennis, but based on your search history, you're going to get an ad for a tennis ball. So it doesn't really matter what that creator is making a video about.
Yeah. For
AdSense. It's more so, what are you consuming, what's in the inventory, and what can we serve to you? Now, it's different from
when you say you mean the individual user who's going on to YouTube and is a Google
the viewer
customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and that's all linked basically back to their own Google accounts, right? I mean, and they get their information. It's drawn from various sources, Gmail, and just Google search history and things like that too.
I'm not exactly sure how they track the information.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is, like what videos you're looking up on YouTube. What does your YouTube history look like? I mean, I don't want to speak for YouTube when I say this, because I don't think YouTube applies this as much as Facebook. Mm-hmm. But for example, if you talk about something, you'll have a Facebook ad typically an hour later regarding that product.
Yeah, I was going to ask about this. So forget about Google for a minute, but like there's this phenomena that everybody seems to observe, which is that they have a conversation with somebody and they say, I swear they're listening to me, because as soon as I get back and I get on my Facebook feed, boom, there's an ad for it.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Good question. When you figured it out, let me know, because I have no idea.
Has it happened to you as well?
Many, many times. And I've even disabled my microphone access to apps, and it still keeps happening. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but I'm using an app which basically blocks social media now, because I'm spending way too much time on it anyways. So that's just my solution to the problem, is to cut the whole thing out.
I've read... I think it was in a book called Stolen Focus, how basically they create a profile of the consumer, of each individual consumer, And it gets so refined every time that you do something, like you post a photo or you have a chat or you send an email or whatever the case may be, that the reason why it is able to anticipate these things is not because it actually hears you in terms of an auditory microphone, but that it is through, let's call it something like AI. It can actually anticipate the next thing that you would want or that you would be discussing, or what your reaction would be to some other event that has occurred in, that's verifiable in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost like a voodoo doll of yourself or something like that.
That would absolutely make sense. I mean, for example, we recently had a second child, and people say congratulations on Facebook, and then I get ads for Pampers. So that would fit to that theory. It doesn't necessarily mean it's listening to everything I'm saying, though it could. I don't know.
Yeah. And you're dealing primarily with a YouTube platform, but there are other places where videos can be seen. I mean, obviously we think of Instagram Reels or TikTok and things like that, and those have different payment models and ways that content creators can be compensated for their work. But just so our discussion's limited, you pretty much are not dealing with those other platforms, or are you pretty much exclusively dealing with the YouTube system?
We're dealing with about 3 major platforms at the moment.
Okay.
And that would be YouTube, TikTok, and Microsoft.
Okay. What is the difference in the way that a person might get compensated for a TikTok video? Because everybody who's ever used the app before knows that it's sort of a vertical scroll. Now I think you see a lot of I've noticed this, like in the last even like 6 months or so, that there's just so many TikTok shop interruptions there. But for a long time it had been almost just exclusively vertical scroll, no ads or anything like that. So how is the TikTok creator being compensated?
Well, TikTok, they had this thing called the Creator Fund, and I don't know how that measures up to TikTok Shop at this point, because they seem to be shoving TikTok Shop down everyone's throats.
Right. With stickers and everything now.
Stickers, yeah. I mean, all the way up to actual products. I mean, it's crazy. I think TikTok, basically, when they learned that YouTube Shorts was now monetized, it was sink or swim. They had to figure out some monetization model to keep TikTok afloat, and not only keep TikTok afloat, but to keep the creators on their platform, because YouTube were the first to figure out an ad sharing program for vertical short content. TikTok had been trying to figure that out for years, and it seems like they've only figured the part out where someone has to enter a debit or a credit card and they have to pay something. YouTube figured it out where if we need your debit card or your credit card, we're paying you, basically, your banking info. So that changes the dynamic, right? Now, TikTok, I don't know if they figured out an ad sharing program. Our focus is specifically with TikTok Shop and actually working with TikTok creators to manage the piracies on YouTube. So it all comes back to YouTube.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and we pay them royalties that way. They just have to get creative, because if you make one TikTok, like you said, it's eligible for Reels, it's eligible for the YouTube Shorts feed, it's eligible for the Facebook feed, and many, many more.
Yeah.
So you really just have to get creative. But TikTok, to my understanding, is monetizable, but it just doesn't compare to YouTube.
Right. And most of the if you're going to monetize on TikTok, it seems like that most of it would have to be the sponsorship deals, or just parlaying it into fame on other platforms where you could get easy monetization, like the shorts, or I don't know what Instagram Reels does, but I'm assuming that it's something more similar to the YouTube program than it would be just to the TikTok.
So Instagram is a Facebook product, which means the same way you make money on Instagram is the same way you make money on Facebook, and that is basically ads. Now, we just talked about TikTok Shop, and I think Facebook has something similar, but it seems like their bread and butter is ads in feed, essentially. And also, obviously, the branded content and the sponsorship component is applicable to any platform, because that's going into the video directly, and it's a third-party deal with a company that's paying you money to promote that product. So you can monetize it that way too.
But what's Microsoft's platform?
Microsoft has a system. Essentially, it was traditionally for news publishers, where they would allow them access to a content hub where you can post your content on Microsoft's landing pages, whether it's Edge or the Xbox Live video feed or the MSN homepage, and they boast like 1 billion daily users or something crazy. So there's a huge audience base there, and they're trying to figure out, how do we put relevant content on here? How do we move away from just news and legacy news into something that's entertaining and is going to keep these people on here instead of us losing them to other platforms? So that's how the Microsoft deal works. Essentially, you bring content that isn't already on there, and you bring it newly to that platform, and they will incentivize you on a revenue share basis for that.
What is their platform called?
They don't really have a name for it. It's just literally Edge, Xbox Live, MSN. They bundle it all into one.
Okay. Yeah.
And we can essentially deliver content to that and get monetized and incentivize our clients for allowing us to do that for them.
All right. So now we've talked about the various video platforms that are out there, and how a content creator could potentially make money somehow on each of those. So where does your business fit into all of this?
Well, we do a little bit of everything. Our bread and butter at the moment is copyright protection services for content creators. Now, we primarily enforce those rights on YouTube because that's where 90% of the piracy is happening. However, the content source, before we put it onto YouTube, is often TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or Twitch, because people will think that if we take something that's not on YouTube and we put it on YouTube, we're not going to get caught. So when we came into business with that model in 2021, we kind of pulled the cover back, and we just saw piracy everywhere. We were claiming thousands for our clients, and we operate on a rev share, so they don't have to pay anything. We pay the salaries and the resources to the staff to bring that content onto YouTube, so they don't even have to do any extra work. So that's primarily what we do. However, we also have a different piece to the business, and that is talent management, to where we would be more hands-on with the creator in helping them craft a growth strategy. Or oftentimes a creator will join us and they've figured out how to make money and go full-time on YouTube, but they want to keep it that way. They want to be in business in 2 or 3 years' time, so we would give them a plan. Do this, do this, do this. Here's your monthly meeting with us. Show up every single month. We'll look at the metrics. We'll dig deep. We'll help you pivot to try new strategies. And we'll generally troubleshoot a lot of things with YouTube as well. So oftentimes, if you're a huge YouTuber, you don't want to go through the traditional support lines if your video gets demonetized or something like that. So our direct relationship with YouTube will help us to fix those things, oftentimes same hour. And so we're kind of just the sidekick to the main character, I guess. Like, we don't try and put ourselves out there too much.
Yeah.
But we're just that quiet pair of hands.
The silent partner that's
silent
working
partner
behind the scenes to maximize.
Holding them up, essentially.
Yeah. All right. So you talked about, you just mentioned kind of 3 different things, and I kind of want to get into each one briefly if we could. So you talk about piracy, right? Could you just give me an example of piracy, just starting with, the creator, and then what happens, and then what the result is for that creator? For sure. Okay. So let's say you make videos on TikTok and you have no YouTube presence, or maybe you do have YouTube presence. It doesn't really matter. Right. There is a huge black market underground, particularly in India and Vietnam and a lot of poorer countries, to where they will figure out ways to slightly manipulate the content, and they will take your most viral videos from TikTok or Instagram or wherever, and they will make compilations on YouTube. They will do like 1 hour best of so-and-so name, or 30 minutes of the funniest fails and wins, or 25 dash cams that you cannot miss. And the average Joe over here has no idea that his content is being embedded into these clips that are getting millions and millions of views, because these piracy farms, they basically have a digital factory floor to where they're manufacturing these videos. They're evading YouTube's default systems. So that's when we come in, and we rely on a lot of YouTube's tools that they provide us. So this is the wrong that's being done, that these piracy factories are actually taking revenue or stealing content, using it for their own. So it's almost like if somebody took a hit song and recorded it on their own and released it on a different platform. Yeah. So you have to come in now and you have to somehow right this wrong, right, on behalf of the content creator. Exactly. So then how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so that's the problem. The solution is they join our service, and we will download all of their videos. We will have a look at the catalog. We will exclude every little thing that isn't eligible or original. So it's very, very strict, right? Obviously, if they're vlogging in public and there's a copyright song on in the background, we can't put that into our system because we'll find a billion matches for that
because that's
song.
what you're trying to prevent. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have to look at every single video, and the turnaround time from signing up to having your whole catalog ingested is about 1 week. So once the content's ingested in our system, YouTube will perform, through our technology that we've built, is what's called a legacy scan. So it will go all the way back to the beginning of time. That will find you every single match, and you can apply a policy. You can automatically monetize it. You can route it for a manual review. You can block it. You can take it down. Our choice is to monetize it. So we automatically monetize the back catalog, and that's typically why people will see a nice spike in revenue. But then we have built custom technology to where once you've signed up with us, we will daily sync all of your new content into our system. We will look at it, we will format it to make sure it complies with YouTube's guidelines and Facebook's guidelines, because we do rights protection on Facebook too. And then we will catch the new re-uploads early on, so you're monetizing it from 0 views.
Yeah. So when you say the choices of you said monetization, takedown, or some other things there. So this is these are the choices that you're presented with once you catch a pirate. Let's just say. So somebody's made a TikTok video. It becomes a snippet in somebody's 35-minute compilation. It's like on minute 21 or 22. So you say, okay, now I've got you. So at that point, you can say, okay, I'm going to force you to take down the whole video, or you can monetize it, which in other words, that means that you're basically eating their lunch, right? Or giving the lunch back to the person from whom it was stolen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that revenue, instead of being routed to their AdSense, we'll do a U-turn and come to our AdSense, and then we will trickle it to the creator after we take our revenue share.
Okay. And would that be for the entire video, or just a representative portion that relates to your content creator?
If no other rights enforcement agency like us has enforced the other person's rights in that video, and we are the only claimant, we will get the whole thing.
Okay. So basically, the people who made this video get nothing.
The pirates, yes.
The pirates get nothing, right? And I imagine that probably doesn't sit well with them, right?
Well, they come up to us with a pitchfork from time to time, but at the end of the day, the law is the law, and creators' rights are creators' rights, and we have to enforce those. And frankly, media partners like YouTube, Facebook, etc., they really are in our corner. So we have to be, looking at every dispute. If someone says you did this incorrectly, we'll have a turnaround time generally of 12 hours to fix that or release anything we're not meant to be claiming, or maybe it is fair use and we'll be lenient. But for the most part, we claim everything and monetize everything unless instructed otherwise. Okay.
Now, the week-long process of ingesting the entire catalog, does that involve manual labor, or is that just some sort of an automated process?
So
when I say manual, I don't mean you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an absolute manual process, because if anything slips through that isn't meant to be there and it gets into the YouTube scanning system that we're operating on, then it's going to cause a lot of lawsuits, basically.
Yeah.
There has been games publishers suing other rights agencies over the years for accidentally claiming like 1 million Call of Duty videos. And so YouTube's really, really strict. And so they should be with their chosen partners like us as to do this and don't do this. So we're very cut and dry. As good as AI is, it just can't find those pieces of content. It doesn't have the brain capacity to figure out this is not licensed, this is not original, but this is. It's all manual.
So it requires somebody to sit and literally watch every single one of these videos from start to finish?
Exactly, yes.
And these would be your employees then?
Correct.
All right. And and you do have some operations overseas as well? And
yep.
And approximately how many employees does your company have?
We're floating about 100 average at the moment. Worldwide.
Okay. Yep. And like, if let's just say that I'm one of the employees who's going to show up to go to work. Oh, by the way, the name of the company is
the copyright piece is Creator Shield.
Creator Shield. Okay. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to punch my card and start a day's work at Creator Shield. What am I being asked to do?
So typically, we would have the sales team, which finds a new lead. They close the lead and they make the catalog available to our ingestion team. The ingestion team, their job is to basically split the workload between reviewing all the videos and filtering out what is in alignment with YouTube's policies for content delivery and what is not. I think I gave a few examples of what's not, but if someone's reacting to a TV show, we have to manually exclude the TV show out of the video and only have their face portion showing. If someone's a Twitch streamer and they're streaming gameplay, we have to manually override like a black box over the gameplay and only zoom in on their face so that we're not claiming other pieces of gameplay.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of intricacies. And then, like I said, if there's music, that has to be muted. So they're looking to see what is original, what's not original. We're only going to put in what's original and licensed versus what isn't.
So the original and licensed piece of a person on Twitch would be just their own image in that little box in the corner,
exactly.
but not like the game that's going on in the background.
Yeah, not the gaming IP, because that is technically the game published content.
Yeah. How does the game publisher get any share of the revenue for videos where the streamer is playing their game? How does that work?
I don't think so. I think they cleared rights for promotional and monetization purposes.
Oh, I see, because it's like free advertising.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So I show up to work for Creator Shield, and maybe somebody says, okay, I'd like you to take a look at the videos for this particular person's channel. And so I'm sitting behind a computer, I'm watching each and every video, and then I'm making certain marks or something like that within a software program that you've got devised, and then when you're finished with that particular creator's content, then you'd move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. Right?
Yeah, or if we're looking at their TikTok, we'd then move on to their Facebook. If we're done with their Facebook, we'd then move on to their YouTube if they have a YouTube account.
Usually use the same person for the same account just so that they have some familiarity with it.
And that would be that client's point of contact. So they would have, support, and then they would have sales. So we take care of them, bringing them in, and then once they're in, we don't just leave them to it. Yeah. And that way, if we were making any wrong judgments or if we have questions, we can ask them and resolve it in real time.
Yep. And then as far as sales goes, that's just the process of contacting the creators and letting them know what services that you have available.
Exactly.
They can help them with. What do you look for in an up and coming content creator, somebody who might be an ideal client for one of your companies?
Yeah. Typically depends on the product. If it's the talent management side, we want to see they're already established and they already have a following, and their desire is to keep that for the next decade. If it's the copyright piece, we'll take them on when they're much smaller, because we can identify through our software, which kind of integrates with AI, what is going to trend and what isn't. So we kind of have a look into the future before it plays out based on the millions of lines of data of historic pieces of information that we have from previous clients. So, for example, if there's a new TikTok trend where people are doing something silly, or
like an ice bucket challenge or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If someone's small and they're doing that, we'll bring them in because we know it's a matter of time until they pop. And it's really no risk for us beside the staff salary to just sit down and ingest those few videos and let it play and just see what happens. That's the main thing. Quality content's a big one. Typically, it's only a matter of time till quality content goes viral. Right. The only thing is that most people don't know how to go from point A, which is being new on YouTube, to point B, which is going viral. And that's typically where we can come in on the talent management side. So a lot of different facets.
And then sort of the other process that you talked about, I think maybe I didn't understand this correctly, but if a content creator is present on, let's say, just TikTok, it sounded like you could take their content and then also just flip it over to YouTube as well, so you can do the chopping up and posting on shorts and all that stuff without them having to worry at all about that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we call that an anchor account. Basically, our job is to enforce your rights. If you're not on a platform but your content's on there and there's no anchor account, which is that first point of upload, we will make that and we'll put your catalog on there. And that will be an extra line item on your monthly check from us. That would be channel royalties, copyright royalties, and promotional royalties. Right. And so, that works out pretty great. Most people already have their pages figured out. But if they don't, we will enforce those too. Otherwise, someone else is going to come along, upload all their videos, And when that creator decides, oh, I'm going to go on YouTube now, a year later, their own channel's going to get copyright striked and took down because YouTube's algorithm thinks the pirate is that person.
Yeah.
So that's why we're essential in being a middleman through all this.
You can set the record straight with YouTube on
Exactly.
that. So it sounds like your companies all work together to make life easy for the content creator. So really, all they have to do is focus on what they're doing as far as making the videos, and the monetization piece is sort of, taken care of. It's on autopilot, so to speak, right?
Exactly. And we even dabble in things like translation and dubbing. So if you have a great gaming channel in the US, we'll just throw 100 pieces of that content to the French markets. We'll use AI to dub it, and we'll give you a rev share and just see what happens. You still own the channel. We're just doing the admin work, and obviously we'll get your permission to do it. But we're doing all of the distribution, and we're basically taking one video and saying, how do we get as many eyes on this as possible from as many different sources so that this creator only has to focus on making great content.
Right. Okay, so this is all something that you have been able to manage and direct from home, basically, right?
Essentially, yeah. And we kind of blew up during COVID, so we didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I work from home. That's challenging with 2 under 2 now. Life's kind of changing. And so, you'd mentioned at the start of the podcast, we're here for now.
Yeah.
And the reason we said that was because we are on the verge of opening an office in Asia. And we're at the point where we're crossing the employee threshold where we now don't have a choice but to comply with certain labor laws and stuff like that. And payroll taxes. And that's the thing in business, right? Like, you start out as an entrepreneur, you start out focused on the product.
Yeah.
And then you're pulled into the corporate side and kind of trying to keep your sanity through that. And like when you were asking me all those TikTok questions, I'm like, I hope this is accurate. Because you get pulled away from that so easy when the company grows. And so I'm just trying to stay close to the product and comply as soon as possible. And then I can come out of that.
Yep. Well, what originally drew you to the Park Rapids area?
So we we moved here in 2018, and my wife's parents are a couple hours north from here, and the cities are a couple hours left, south, or right, depending on where you want to go.
Sure.
Park Rapids is a quiet area. It has 4 seasons. Some people would say there's like 3 seasons, like winter, spring, and summer or something.
Yeah, or winter,
winter, summer, something like that. But growing up in the UK, I never really experienced that. It's just dull. It's, and here everything is just, it seems like it's a very chill area. Right. And that appealed to me. My wife's high school mentor, a Christian mentor, was here who just really put her on a straight path in life. Yeah. She lives in Monaga. And then we visited First Baptist Church, and we fell in love with the people and the preaching, and we decided to just put our roots there.
So, so being a Christian is something that you are, and something that's very important to your way of life as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What sort of challenges do you find in staying true to Christian faith and also operating a huge business like yours?
Comes with its own unique challenges. I am blessed to have gotten I think, materialism out the way early on. So obviously, when a business succeeds, then comes revenue, and you have to be a wise steward of that revenue. Do we take this and run with it? Do we buy a Lamborghini? Do we do whatever we want, buy a house in Miami, whatever?
Yeah.
No, so when I was making those first few videos back when I was 16, I was making a few $1,000s a month, and I just went crazy. I was buying gaming PCs, consoles, cars in the UK, changing cars every 6 months.
Yeah.
And I'm just blessed to have that out my system. Now, that doesn't mean the temptation goes away entirely.
Sure.
To be materialistic and to skew your authorities. Priorities in life and authorities, whether it's God or money. You can't serve both. Mm-hmm. So that puts me in a situation to where I'm just relying strongly on the counsel that God's put around me, whether it's the people in our church, whether it's the people he's put into my life as Christian employees that work alongside me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say under me, but alongside me, because I rely on them as much as they rely on me, or even just the counsel of my wife. Oftentimes when I have blind spots, and that's the great thing about Christianity. Typically when someone comes alongside you, it's not with a poking finger in your face. It's more of a, hey, my arms are on your shoulder. I'm noticing this. Let's try and get out of this.
Right.
So I've had a lot of that over the years. And I haven't arrived yet, truthfully, Business is entering new territory at the moment, and I think seeing how the next few years is going to pan out is going to be interesting. But I am glad to have that just attachment to money out the way, to the point where it doesn't really dictate. You don't want your company to crash into the ground, but you're not going to have a meltdown if it does. Because God will always provide, and He's proven that to be so true over the years since we started in 2018.
Right, and every time you come across the parable of the rich young ruler, I always say, I wonder what it means when it says it's harder for a camel to pass through than eye of a needle. But what do you take the meaning of that parallel to be, or that parable to be? I said parallel, but I meant parable.
I think my situation would be different if the business succeeded before I was a Christian. Every day, we work with people that unfortunately garner the riches first, and then they receive the gospel, and then there's just a backlash. And it's ugly. You really see those forces wrestling for that person's soul. In terms of taking it for what it means, I think it's pretty plain. And the reason I say that is because I talk to so many, what the world would call wealthy people every day, whether it's on sales calls, and you're trying to throw them a safety net before it comes crashing down because you see the channel's not heading in the right direction and they're going to lose this at some point. And you're trying to help them and they're like, no, it's fine. Like nothing can hurt me. And then they come crashing down a month later. Or someone joins us, they start out small. We get them up to 100K a year, 200K a year. And they're like, okay, I don't need you now. Bye-bye. Within 30 days, the analytics just tank.
Yeah.
So they have a way of thinking that is so contrary to, I think, the humility required to become a Christian. Because we have to remember that God has set the bar so low that many people refuse to bow down and go through it.
Right.
He hasn't set the bar high at all.
Right.
But they think that they have something special, something to bring to the table. And if you ever try and get in between that, I mean, like the parable says, it really basically is impossible. Now, God can still do miracles. We can pray for people. But generally, in this industry, at least for me, that's been challenging.
It is. I mean, I think it goes on to say that it is impossible, or it is next to impossible, but with God, all things are possible.
All things are possible.
So, but it's also impossible pretty much for any person to pass into the kingdom of heaven, let alone a rich man, right? I mean, you might as well throw that in there to say that it's harder for any man to pass into the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to pass through an eye of a needle, and that's why we thank God for that, for providing us with that grace that allows us to do that. So,
amen. I can't disagree with that. When I look at my story, where I came from, what I used to do, and ripping pages out of Bibles, to where I am now. I mean, it's a miracle that God could change a person's heart that way and soften it.
Right. So one of the things that that we've done here in Park Rapids is trap shooting.
Trap shooting.
Let's talk a little bit about your experience with trap shooting, and some of the lessons, maybe life lessons that you've learned through engaging in that sport.
Well, let's start with the fact that they tell you need to keep about 20 things on your checklist leading up to before you pull the trigger, while having nothing at all in your mind. The reason I like trap shooting is because it's a challenge and I haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
I mean, we have some great friends. Even today we learned that one of our close friends shot 100 straight.
Right.
It's like, okay, if you can do that and we're struggling to do 25, I at least want to get that push of dopamine. And honestly, like, trap shooting is just, in my opinion, a very innocent way to go out and have leisurely time with friends. I also, coming from the UK, love guns. Being in the US, I mean, it's great that you can just freely shoot a gun in a safe environment with safe people. You got me into that, and I obviously haven't gone as much in the last few weeks since we had a newborn, but it's something I enjoy greatly. Right. But I socially shoot. I'm not good at it.
Right. Well, I mean, you're better at it than I am, I'll tell you that, but but we always have fun out there, and it is a good way to just kind of socialize and be around good people, and it generates some funny stories, and
it does.
There's some good personalities in there as well. So speaking again about Park Rapids in general, is there anything about Park Rapids that you would change, or is there anything that you think that it needs or could improve upon?
That's a tough question, actually, Because, I mean, we've lived in LA and I've lived in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, and it feels like this is just the middle ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, this is one thing we've talked about in the past. It's like a kid's play center, like soft play, or like a shallow swimming pool to where they can, without having to drive like 2 hours round trip to Dallas.
An indoor attraction.
Indoor attractions
Right.
for kids. I think that would be a big one, especially for a lot of the younger families moving here.
Yep.
And there's two ways you can look at that. You can look at it as a problem, or you can look at it as a challenge. So, for example, we spoke to one of the ladies in town, and we will know in September if we're going to have an update on if we can get a grant or not to put up a soft play area. I think that would be really, really cool if we can get that. But I think that that's the mindset people should have too. Like, if there is a problem, how can you fix it and plug into the community instead of like,
Don't just be a complainer and
Exactly.
Actually do something about it, right? Just don't talk about something, do it.
Yeah, because who else will? I mean, it's like, that's the way I see things.
Baseball. You've been to the past two opening day games for the Twins.
Yeah.
What's your impression of baseball as someone who didn't grow up with it?
The coolest part of baseball was the fighter jet that flew above us for like 10 seconds. That's something I've always wanted to see. And I think the sport itself, it's more of a slower pace, socializing environment. Really.
Right.
Like you can, I feel like with soccer, if you take your eye off the pitch for like 1 second, you can miss a goal and whatever.
Yeah. Well, you can take your eye off the pitch for 45 minutes and not miss a goal too. But.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, like, things can happen so quickly, but with baseball, there's an organized, okay, the guy's stepping up. So let's talk about how that round of trap shooting went last week, or for example. Like, you're not so tied, because the games go on for a while, and we can obviously sit there and have a laugh and have something to eat. We typically go to the opening games. So for me, that's like the internal check has been checked that we're going into summer.
Right.
So it's just a great time. Like, typically it's the first time we will have t-shirt weather.
Yeah.
See green grass.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
You think you'll be going to opening day next year?
Potentially. I mean, we plan on being back here April, May. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So I was going to ask you about the Euro final, but didn't really turn out the way that you probably would have hoped. So maybe we'll just skip over that one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Unless you've got a comment on that.
No comment.
All right. So as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you for advice or proposed advice that you might give to two different classes of people. Okay. So the first one would be to content creators. What sort of advice, if a 12-year-old kid or somebody like that is looking at YouTube as potentially being a career, what kind of advice would you give that person?
If they're looking at it for potentially being a career, you have to approach it with a business mindset. In the sense that your video almost has to become a product. So there's hobby creating, which is you do whatever you want and you hope it blows up, and typically it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Then
you hobby creation where you just do what you want and then not really expect it to blow up, kind of like this channel.
Right. But you're not going into this like, I want to make $100K a month and quit my job.
Correct.
So, and we established that early on when I was trying to tell you, hey, have you considered this, this potential deal or whatever?
Yeah.
From the business side, I would say really study up on the channels that have already made it. Take diligent notes, fill a notepad of A4 notes if you have to, as to what they're doing versus what you're doing and it isn't working out, and see how you can slowly implement those aspects that can help you grow. So for example, instead of just starting the video, hey guys, welcome to my Minecraft Let's Play. Today we're going to go and ride a pig or do something crazy. It's, you have something called a hook. In the first 3 seconds, I'm sure you know what a hook is. It's basically, guys, you're never going to believe it, blah, 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 blah. Stay tuned to find out. And it's fast-paced.
Yeah.
So you want to have people watching your videos for at least 5 minutes if you want any hope of getting a good enough ad rate to make it good.
Because you said that the viewing length is what's really the most important thing, right?
Because that's what determines if YouTube's going to recommend your video or not. And even if you have a few of your friends subscribe, that's not going to be anything in comparison to what YouTube can do if they decide to push your content.
Sure.
In recommended
Right.
What was the second?
Well, so let me just sum up what you said there for content creators, which is that you have to take a professional view of it early on. What about the choice of the type of content that you would put out there? I mean, can somebody just say, I just generically want to be a YouTuber, or like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do they have to say I'm a gamer, or do they have to say I'm a vlogger, or can they actually just force that depending on their drive to use it as a career?
It really depends on their intention. If their intention is to treat YouTube as a business and to make it their job, I would say that you have a limited role in the genre of content, but typically what we're seeing is certain niches have more results. Some people call it milking revenue, or like cash cowing, or whatever. I'm sure you've seen a lot of those like faceless AI videos where they would give you the top 5 facts about sea animals that we've never seen before.
Yes, yeah.
Like just those, I wouldn't recommend that because it doesn't look like there's a lot of longevity to synthetic content on YouTube. But for example, if you think about, so the goal is to have people watch the video, the goal is to have as much interaction as possible, and the goal is for YouTube to promote you. You're probably not going to get that by just posting a Minecraft Let's Play like I did back in the day anymore, because there's just too much competition. You probably will have more results if, I'll give you an example. One of our clients grew from a new page from 0 to, it was like 1.5 million followers in 30 days. It was a challenge from his wife. The hook video for that, I believe, was a bucket was like a Home Depot bucket, the orange ones, was duct taped to his car wheel. Okay. And they put cream and sugar and vanilla in there, and they put a lid on the bucket, and he drove down the street, and he made ice cream. Now, that type of content is called rage bait, but it's some of the best content because it's funny, it's comedic, it's lighthearted. But people are clicking it with one idea, and they're like, how on earth are we going to get to this end piece of what you've told me in the title of how to make the best ice cream? And the guy doesn't say a word. He's just, and like, it has good view. Like it's solely staged comedy content. And they have some of the best CPMs in all time at the moment.
Is that one where it actually you're waiting to get to the end and it just never comes? Like,
well, it comes. Yeah. I mean, it comes, but they're dragging it out for as long as they can. Like they'll give you the first 3 seconds is them eating it out of the Home Depot bucket, and you're like, How does it go from this on the marble clean modern countertop to them eating out of a Home Depot bucket next to the car with all this duct tape?
Sure.
So you're creating a lot of like curiosity, and then that's going to have the people keep watching.
And then
I mean,
that's just good old fashioned creativity, isn't it?
Creativity, yeah. Call it that. Yeah.
You can't just say I want to be a YouTuber and not have a creative thought.
Exactly. But then think about how many people will watch that and be like, ha ha ha. People will watch that and be like, this is so stupid. You're the most stupid. How could you ever do this? And then you reply, and then they come back and they give you more interaction, and then you are just, before you know it, you have 1 million views.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then so the other class of people who might seek your advice would be people who want to be entrepreneurs in the space.
Sure.
So what would you tell a young Jake Jones later, with the wisdom that you've gained after whatever it is, 12 years in the space?
Okay, so I want 2 ways I can answer this, because number one, I'm a Christian, so I believe you should pray and figure out what God specifically wants you to do. After you've entered into a relationship with him through Christ. That's the first thing. Second, just secularly, I mean, if I had to say this to a random person, I would say that, at least for me, where there has been no risk, there has been no reward. You have to take risks if you want a reward, in business especially. It is scary, it is nerve-wracking, it is hard, it can cause strain on you, but if it pays off, then the payout is typically going to outweigh that risk by a lot.
Sure.
And then future risks become less scary because you have more of a experience, you have more cushion to fall back on if the next one blows up in your face. And so, I mean, even this week, I'm taking various risks of my own.
Sure.
That could very well blow up in my face. In regards to buying another company. And you can't ever take that risk factor away. I think if you want to, what's that, Dave Ramsey has a way of saying it. It's like, if you want to live and give like no one else, I don't know exactly what it is, but the principle is take risks, be wise, make sure it's going to work. If it doesn't, know when to cut your losses quickly, and try again. Don't let it beat you down, because there are so many opportunities. In fact, I think there's so many opportunities that the next young entrepreneur should be mindful that they don't get, I think the saying is like death from 1,000 cuts, where you're trying to do a little bit of everything, and then in trying that, you're slowly getting cut alive by trying to have a small part of everything, when if you narrow down on 2 or 3 things, give it your all, figure it out. And if it doesn't work, try again. This is something else.
Well, that's great advice. And Jake, it's been really great having you as a friend over these years, and wish you the best of success in all of your ventures. Thank you for coming on to the show. And hopefully we'll be able to sit down and go to the opening day of the Twins next year. I think they're playing the Astros, and I think it's April 3rd or April 4th or something like that. But no, in all seriousness, thanks for coming on the show. I think you've got a lot of great knowledge and wisdom to impart to all the people. And wish you the best. Thank you so much, Jake.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity, Zach. And I'll be keeping an eye on the comments. If you guys have questions, just let me know and I'll reply.
Thanks. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, and smash the subscribe button.
And smash that button.
Don't just subscribe. Smash the subscribe.
And the little bell, too,
Yeah.
for notifications. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks.